video, we're going to talk about how to say if in Chinese, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The problem with talking about saying if is that there's a lot of ways to say if in Chinese. And so we're going to start with the most standard, and then we'll talk about some variants. I only have a couple of examples, and I'll kind of work off of them. So the most standard way to say if then. So if something something something, then something 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 is 如果, it looks like that in Pinyin. 如果 something something something, comma, subject if there is a new subject, 就. Now we've talked about 就 a lot, and so it makes sense that this is the then in the if-then sentence. If this condition happens, then boom, that can happen. And you might remember this from quite early. I think in HSK 2, we talked about early HSK 2. We talked about 你不喜, we talked about this use of 就. I think we actually talked about this exact example. 你不想去, you don't want to go. 就不去吧. In that case, then don't go. So it's like saying, since this is true, don't do that. We know this is true. 你不想去, 就不去吧. So then don't go. You don't want to go? Then don't go. This is very similar idea. The difference is that 如果 is a hypothetical situation. If, it's not since. That's the difference between since and if, right? If is more about, is like hypothetical, but since is acknowledging, stating something that's already, we know is already true. 如果他不想去, but 就 is used in both of these cases. Okay, so here's another example. 如果他不去, if he does not go, 我就不去了. 我就不去了. I then don't go. 了, meaning like I'm planning to go, but if he doesn't go, 我就不去了. I'm not going. Does that make sense? Here's another one. This sentence is super long and complicated. It'll be fun, but we'll have to work through it, okay? 如果神不存在. So this is if 神 God 不存在 does not exist. 如果神不存在, then what? 我们就 we 就 we then 没办法. Remember 没办法 means have no way. We have no way. 客观的. 客观 means objective. So 客观的, this de makes this into an adverb, so objectively. 分别 distinguish or tell the difference between 善恶 good and evil. So if God doesn't exist, we then do not have an ability to tell the difference, objectively tell the difference between good and evil. So there's a lot going on in that sentence, but I hope, I just wanted to point out some of the, we have 没办法, we have 客观 that making the adjective into adverb, and then we have the whole sentence, which is relatively complex, but the basic 如果就 is just the same as the simple sentence. Okay, so there's 如果就. Now, there are many ways to say if that kind of have the same idea. We have an if clause and a then clause. There are many ways to express an if idea in Chinese, and but some of them, like there's ways to manipulate or change this. Okay, a couple of things. The 就 can sometimes be omitted. Often it can be omitted. It's normal. Actually, it's there more than not. But especially in more simple sentences, it can be omitted because it's not needed to clarify and make the sentence structure clear. When you have a longer sentence like this, then the 就 helps to anchor the more complex parts. But anyway, 就 can sometimes be omitted. You can use na or nama. We've learned that, which has the same idea of like so, then. In place of 就, you can use them together. You can say 那么如果他不去, 那么我就不去了. It's extra words, but it can go together. I think the difference is that 那 comes before the 我, 就 comes after. So I should point that out. I don't think you say 我那不去. Yeah, no, you say 那我不去了. Okay, and then other things you can do. There's another word, actually more than just one, but in terms of like the degree of how often it's used, they're very similar. We have yàoshi. This is yào. It means to want or to will do something. Shi means is, but put together in a word, it means if, just like 如果. So we can replace 要是 with 如果 and it works just the same. 要是他不去，我就不去了。要是他不去，我就不去了。So there's that. There's another thing, both with the 如果 and 要是 phrase, or even with neither of them, we can put dehuà after. So this dehuà comes after the condition, not before it. 如果 and 要是 come before the condition. Dehuà goes after. So dehuà means like speaking of something. So 他不去的话，我就不去了。Or I can add 如果 and 要是 and use it with 的话 together. So 如果他不去的话，我就不去了。Or 要是他不去的话，我就不去了。So there's that. There's also, similar to this sentence, sometimes you don't even state. You don't have a clear if word in the if clause. This is like, it means since, but what if it is hypothetical? If like with this sentence, we can just take this away and say, 他不去，我就不去了. We don't know if he's going to go. And then lastly, there are actually cases when in both this part of the clause and that part of the clause, there's nothing to indicate if at all. It's just so situational. It's clear. All Set Learning inspired this example. They pointed this out, and then I realized, oh yeah, I've heard that. I've said that. Here's an example. 有空到我家来. 有空, it's like comma, but I didn't put a comma in the sentence. 有空到我家来走走. So what does that mean? 有空 means have time. Somebody has time. Free time. 有空. So that's the if part. If you have time, 有空来我家, come to my home, sit. Come to my home and be my guest. It basically means that. Sit means like come and sit down and be my guest. All right, so 有空来我家坐坐. So 有空 just means have time. 来我家坐坐, come to my house, sit. There's no if or then in either of them, but because of the situation, if I meet someone on the street, I know them, then to be nice before we leave, I say, 有空来我家坐坐. If you have time, come over to my place and sit. So does that make sense? So in certain situations, you can say, you can express the idea of if without even saying if or then. So it's very flexible. That's my point. I hope you're getting the point that it's very flexible, and there are a lot of ways to do it. But this is the like standard way, 如果就. Then we have 要是就, or we have 的话 after the phrase right here in this part with 如果 or 要是 or without. And then we have 就, we can use 那, we can take them both away sometimes. And then there's one more point to make. And this is an important one. If you think of the word if being translated to 如果 or 要是, you might be tempted to use these words in a situation in English when we say if, but it doesn't mean this, like hypothetical situation. There is another, we use if in English to say something. It's like the weather if. It means weather, but we say if. So I don't know if I'm able to come. I don't know if I'm able to come. That doesn't mean the same. It's not like saying, if I'm able to come, I'll bring cherries. That's different, right? I don't know whether or not, or whether I'm able to come. I don't know whether I'm able to come or not. That weather word there is different in Chinese. There is actually a formal word that is 是否, that does mean weather, but usually what Chinese people say in speech is not that formal word. It's just 我不知道我能不能来. 我不知道 我能不能? So that's can, not can. I don't know, can, not can come. Does that make sense? So it's like it presents the two options in a sense. And it's like, I don't know whether this is true or this is true. I don't know this or that. I don't know can, not can come. So that's the way you deal with that in Chinese. You don't say 如果我不知道如果我来. That doesn't work. So that's important to say because if you're translating like if into 如果 in your mind, you'll do that and that won't work. All right, there's if. I think this is the whole lesson. Let me just make sure. Yeah, kind of a slightly shorter one today, only 11 minutes long. And it's only 1 point because it is important to kind of like really get how to say if and the different variants into your mind and into your sense of, to make it natural and fluid. You're doing great.